Hey everyone, welcome back to Move Over Martha. Today we're going to be working on the Mr. and Mrs. pillows that I spoke about in some previous videos, the duplicate of the Ballard design pillow. So I know it's been a while. I've been trying to get my kids ready for school and getting them settled, so I finally had some free time. I had some orders I had to catch up with from a show and stuff like that. So today we're going to get started. In order to do this, you need to have some basic sewing skills. So you need a sewing machine and some piping. You are going to be sewing a pillow, so it's nothing fancy, just basic stitches. I have two pieces of 16-inch. It's a little bit bigger, I think, for the seam allowance. I have some of this Wright's sewing bias tape. It's like a piping. It's like a dark brown, so it's a nice contrast. You need some Reynolds freezer paper. We're going to use some of the Tulip fabric paint. You could probably use acrylic paint for this project since you're not washing the pillow, so the paint would stay on it. I just didn't know if it would be stiff when you were done painting it, so that's why I didn't use that type of a paint. I didn't want it to be like a crunchy kind of effect on the pillow. So you'll need some little sponge daubers, a mixing bowl. I'm mixing the two paints because my piping is a little darker than what the Tulip paint had, so I'm going to mix a little black in it to make it darker. So there's my little mixing bowl, and then you're going to need the Cricut and then a font cartridge. And crazy enough, I picked this Hannah Montana cartridge up, and at first I was like, oh, my kids are kind of past the Hannah Montana stage, but I realized it is an alphabet cartridge, and it has like 5 different fonts of alphabet, so it was really, I thought, pretty good. You know, they have some basic fonts. The best thing about this was it was $6.97. I've never gotten a Cricut cartridge less than $9.97, $9.99, like on Black Fridays and stuff. When I got to the register, this actually rang up for $1.97, so that was a happy day. And they also had a SpongeBob, so I figured my kids are kind of past SpongeBob too, but you never know. For $6.97, what the heck? And he too rang up for $1.97, so that was a really good score at Joann's a couple weeks ago. You'll need an iron, and then you need to cut your freezer paper. Let's head on over there. I've cut the freezer paper to fit my Cricut mat, a 12 by 12 mat, which is a good size since my pillow is going to be 16 inches, so I'm going to make it as big as I can on this mat so that it'll be pretty big on the paper. And you want to put this with the shiny side down, and I'm sorry, this shiny side up, and then the flat side down, because the shiny side, I guess it has difficulty sticking to the Cricut, and when you pull it off, that's the side that you're going to iron on to your fabric. So you're going to face this down, which leads me to, when you go to your Cricut, you need to use the flip button in order to do that. So I have a gypsy, and I have aligned it on my gypsy and created my mat. And I have it flipped, and it's as big as it can be on the mat. So I'm going to go ahead and load that in. I'm going to cut it, and then we'll come back when we line it up, and I'll show you it ironed on to the fabric. So I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I cut my image, and my setting was, the speed was on medium. You don't want it too high because then it might rip the paper. This paper is kind of thin. And then the pressure was on medium also. Low, it just won't cut it, and then high, it might rip it. So here it is. It's cut out. Now when you pull it off of this mat, you want to be really, really gentle because you don't want to have any tears, or else when you start painting, if it's not cut evenly, it'll start to bleed out on your fabric. If you do not have a Cricut, and you can still do this project, what you would do is you would just print the words on the computer, and you would also flip it, and then you would cut out the X-Acto knife, cut it all out with an X-Acto knife so you have the negative image, and then you would flip it over, and then you could either tape it or use this freezer paper and iron it down. If you taped it, it might not make a good seal and it might bleed out. What you could do is trace it with a pencil and then go back in and hand paint it with a paintbrush in the areas that you marked it. So if you don't have a Cricut, you could still do this project. So I'm going to pull it off gently, and then I'm going to take it over and line it up on my fabric, and then we're going to iron it on and see how it looks. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and as you can see, I've ironed it on, and it's a really snug fit all around, so hopefully the paint won't bleed anywhere. The hardest part is lining this up so that it's straight, which in the end will drive me crazy if it's not. So what I'm going to do is, if it's not straight, in the end, I'm going to trim the pillow, and it might be a 14-inch pillow instead of a 16-inch, so that it will all even out. So I'm not going to stress about that right now. So here's my paint that I've mixed, the brown with the black. I'm going to go ahead and stir that up, and I'm going to use this and make sure that it's a good color and it matches my trim. So let me go and thoroughly mix that, and then we will come back and I'll start sponging it onto the negative image. That's what this is. This is the negative image, and then that's the positive image. So that's what I was saying. If you printed this out on cardstock, or this free, printed letters out and then traced it onto the freezer paper, all you would do is take an X-Acto knife where you traced and cut it all out, and then use this freezer paper. So it can be done even if you don't have a Cricut, so don't be discouraged. I will be right back. Okay, so I mixed it all up, and as you can see, it is a tad bit darker than what I started with, and it matches my trim a little bit better. It didn't need to be exact, I just wanted it to be in the same hue as the trim. So I mixed it in a bowl that I have a lid for. This is something from a Chinese restaurant that our dinner came in, and I saved it. So I do have the lid. You need, if you're mixing paint to make it match whatever, if you can't find the exact fabric paint to match your pillow, just make sure you mix enough so that when you go to do the Mrs. pillow, you have enough of the same paint in the same color. That would be sad if you did it and then you didn't have any paint left over for the next pillow and you couldn't get it to match exactly. So all we're going to do is get some paint on here, and then we're going to just sponge paint in the areas. I'm not so much like going up and down with it as I am just sponging it, because you don't want to start like lifting that paper or agitating that paper to where it lifts up and you get like a crease. You want it to stay flat so that it doesn't bleed anywhere. So now we can see I kind of covered all the areas. I'm going to let that dry for a while because I don't want to lift it up while it's wet in case I lift it and then a piece of this drips off or hits my fabric. So normally I'm really impatient, but I've been waiting a while to make these pillows, so I am going to take my time and let it dry. We'll be back when I pull off the thing and we'll see how it looks, and then I'll stitch it up and we'll show you the final result. So I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, so it is somewhat dry. I did very extremely carefully pull the paper up from the pillow, and as you can see, it's really, really crisp. It looks really nice. In here, I don't know, it's just the pillow is a little buckled, but it's actually really, really well done. It is very centered on this piece of fabric, which is what I was worried about What I think I might do is just trim this fabric on the top and on the bottom, just so that the pillow has the same width all around. I think that might bother me a little bit. So I think I might make the pillows a little bit shorter than what they're supposed to be. But I'm really, really pleased with the color. The color matches the trim really nice. This fabric is a little heavier than just regular like cotton fabric. And the only thing is if you really cherish whatever it's under, you need to put like a piece of cardboard because it did bleed through. I really don't, this is just like my mess around fabric. I don't, there's like glue on it. I use it to iron things. I don't really care if this fabric gets messed up. So just be aware of that. Put some cardboard or some newspaper down. But I'm really, really pleased with the way it looks. So I'm going to let it dry overnight. And then I'm going to come back in the morning and trim the pillow up. And then I'm going to start my stitching when it is completely dry. So I will see you guys in the morning. Okay, so here's the finished product. I actually redid the pillow because my husband suggested that it have a dot after the letters. So I just redid it and sized it the same and all. But I did the piping, and then on the back I used brown fabric instead of that burlap. So we'll go over and take a closer look. It's still pretty much the same. I also added a little bit of a copper so that it has a sheen to it, because my comforter actually does have like a little bit of a sheen to it. So adding the copper in it made it a little bit more brown and a little shinier. But that's the back. And I did a little piping on the top. Also, if you aren't good at sewing but you still wanted to make a pillow like this, you could always take a sham that you buy at the store and then just stick a piece of cardboard under it and do it on the pillow sham itself. It's also a good idea to do to make t-shirts if you have like a reunion coming up or whatever. It's a really easy way to kind of do like a screen printing on fabric. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.